Dapa Nauna, morning true, and a very good morning to you. Welcome to the latest online business briefing from Business Advantage PNG. My name is Andrew Wilkins. I'm the Publishing Director of Business Advantage International, and I'm going to be your host this morning to talk about three very relevant and very interesting business topics. The first of those is about value adding and how we can develop more value adding and downstream processing in Papua New Guinea. The second one is going to be talking about PNG's vaccine rollout and how employers can get more involved in making that successful. And the third is we're going to be talking about borrowing from the bank with one of the bankers at Kina Bank. So, busy morning. Before we start, just a few notices for you. The first is to acknowledge our sponsor for this morning's event. That is Monia. We appreciate their support. Obviously, these events are not free to produce, so their support enables us to bring this to you free of charge. So we're very appreciative of Monia's support for this event. Please notice also at the bottom of your Zoom screen there is a Q&A tab. You can use that to ask questions or even to express comments during the course of this morning's session. Feel free to do so. If we can't answer your questions during the session, we'll share your questions with the guests this morning and try very hard to get answers for you after the event. This event is being recorded, so if you do have to duck away before the end, don't worry, a full recording will be made and made available to you in due course. Two items to draw to your attention. If you didn't catch the news recently, just to let you know that the 2021 Papua New Guinea Investment Conference is on the 7th to the 9th of September. And for the first time, it will be a digital-only event. We're going to take PNG to the world with a unique online event which will bring local and international business people together. Registrations will open in just a couple of weeks. So we encourage you to go to the website pnginvestmentconference.com, where you can view the provisional program and express your interest in attending the event. Also, another lovely thing which we're very proud of is PNG Now, PNG's premium lifestyle magazine. The new issue is out around town right now. If you are outside of PNG, you may not have seen this around, but it's available through all sorts of places, social hubs, cafes, hotels, all around Port Moresby, and also available in Lae as well. And it's a fantastic and very entertaining read. So the new edition, the June edition, also features an expanded business and money section. So it's well worth your while grabbing a copy. So that's the housekeeping out of the way. Now on with the program. Now our first topic is value adding. Well, the Marape government has made it very, very clear it wants to encourage more value adding and downstream processing in Papua New Guinea. But the question is, how can that best be done? What progress has already been made? What policies would actually make a difference? And also, where are the biggest opportunities in this area? To join me in the discussion, I've been speaking to Chey Scovell, who is the CEO of the Manufacturers Council in PNG. Of course, manufacturing is what it's going to be all about, and that means hopefully more jobs and greater value from the produce that PNG produces. Chey is a man who's well informed on this matter, but also has very forthright views, as you're about to discover. I spoke to him a little earlier. The Prime Minister has been adamant that he's very, very keen to talk to investors about downstream processing in Papua New Guinea for the commodities that it produces. What's the current state of play? How well is the country doing as far as adding value to the goods and the crops and the resources that it produces?
I guess it's comparative is the first point I would make. You know, if you have a look at the level of FMCG manufacturing in Papua New Guinea compared to somewhere like Australia or New Zealand, you know, I guess in particular these countries that have very high labour costs, you know, high regulatory costs, we're actually doing pretty well. You know, people often get quite surprised when they realise we've got a couple of, beverage bottlers, the size, I guess, of the brewery. We've now got another really, world-class brewery here with Paradise Breweries. we continue to manufacture cigarettes here. They don't do that in Australia, albeit that a lot of the stuff that Colgate does, they still import base, but they're actually doing their blending and their mixing here, something that they don't do in Australia and New Zealand. That level of thing, even like noodles for a while there, they're looking at supplying the Maggi noodles for the Australian New Zealand market. Ex PNG is in the pipeline, so we're punching above our weight for that. I guess one of the reasons why we've been able to do that is not so much around the low labour costs, because as we know, our productivity is quite poor by comparison, but it's the, those high costs of getting into the market. We've still got, we've got a population that's double, probably triple New Zealand in reality. I think we're probably closer to the 12 million than the 10 million now, and New Zealand's got like 4. That's a lot of people out there, and albeit that they're in the informal sector, they've got folding money to spend. So there's still a huge opportunity for more. But for the players that are there, particularly, as we've spoken before about the small goods manufacturers and things like that. But the snack foods, all those edible, like particularly low cost FMCG items, and then necessary, FMCG, the fast moving consumer goods in household items, there's a huge demand. The size of the market in Papua New Guinea is quite considerable, and penetration's still very low. So most people would say that, Papua New Guineans, eat too much ice cream and too much soft drink or drink too much beer. But our per capita consumption is among the lowest in the world, which tells you that the market penetration is still minute. And that opportunity is there. So I think for the people that are here at the moment, or the people that have been here for 50 years, that's the market that they work and they keep building. And I guess, from the government perspective, particularly when things like this pandemic have driven home to the world what food security really meant.
Yes.
You've got countries like Australia who, for the last 10 or 20 years, and Andrew, I think you and I in the same room many years ago when the then Prime Minister of Australia, Julia Gillard, was doing a presentation at the Gateway. I think you guys had representation there. Remember, I stood up and I said, listen, what advice could you give to our government officials here on the importance and how to attract manufacturing? And her answer was really blunt. She says, well, in Australia, we're actually very happy to see all the manufacturing jobs go. And we're now very proud to, focus on the high end in the research. And, we've got smart engineers and scientists that tell people how they can manufacture better, but we're happy to see those jobs go to lower cost countries and are happy to deal with the waste and all that sort of stuff. It was a very blunt answer, but in PNG, it's about seizing that opportunity, I guess, where you've literally got, countries that are not keen. I would imagine also when I hear people like our Prime Minister and senior members of Parliament, make reference to or comment about the desire and the importance of getting into value-added industries in Papua New Guinea, it's sort of twofold. But the one thing they have in common, it's not just about import substitution, it's about value-adding of our own resources, which is what you touched on. A lot of the things we import a lot. And the two parts is, one is in agriculture. So to, what I would call agriculture, fisheries and forestry. I think all too often, agriculture can be used broadly.
Yes.
It's not just about people that are turning over some soil and putting in some seeds and harvesting a crop. Forestry is a part of agriculture, fisheries and the like. So more value adding there. And then also in the extractive sector, yes. we've heard about it for a long time, but I guess when the platform is right, it would be, I guess there's room, there's a space there for PNG to do more value adding, of the byproducts of the extractive sector. And I know that, they talk about having a bullion bank and the like here. I'm not talking about that. I mean, that's another matter altogether. But, the petrochemical industry, we in Australia now, essentially all the heavy industry's gone. It's very difficult in Australia to get a permit to take clay out of the ground to make bricks, let alone to, to burn gas or, coal or anything like that, any of those high heat sources. They used to make things like bricks and roof tiles. So there's a space there for Papua New Guinea, I guess, to leapfrog in technology so that, we're not necessarily putting in, a manufacturing operation that puts the same amount of pollutants into the air because they've got, better technology and cleaner. But PNG's still got the potential to say, well, the whole world doesn't have to be made in, India and China and Brazil and a couple of these, countries. People like, nations like Papua New Guinea can actually utilise our own resources. We've got the energy, we've got things like the clay, we've got sands, we've got all the ingredients. We've got, a huge potential labour market because we know that, unemployment here is a massive problem. We've got this, very pressing need. If we want to develop our country in the way that everybody would desire, it will only come through a formal economy. The reality is our government needs to probably be spending 30 billion Kina a year in their budget to, appropriately fund, health and education and all those support services. As long as we keep having this vibrant informal sector and struggling formal sector, that won't be addressed. And getting into, these value-added sectors will, help drive that transfer of informal capacity into the formal sector.
What needs to happen to attract that next wave of investment, Chey, in your opinion? Is it a question of incentives? Is it a question of special economic zones like the one they're building out in Gulf Province? There's been a petroleum park annexed out near the LNG plant for as long as the LNG plant's been there, probably before then. So that's maybe 10 years. I don't believe there's been a sod turned on that site. So what does it take to get these new sectors going with value adding?
Andrew, I think my views are quite well known in this area, that there needs to be holistic reform. Papua New Guinea as a legal territory in which to conduct, business and go about living, needs to have a uniform set of, rules that are conducive to, doing business, conducive to attracting capital, conducive to, generating wealth. I think there are some very good success stories of export zones, places like General Santos in the Philippines around fisheries. The two financial, the officers were in two different pawnbroking shops in Gensan because they didn't have a dozen shops. You had two pawnbrokers who also acted as agents for a banking service. But now you go to Gensan, you've got all of the commercial banks there. You've got, I think 30-something branches. You've got malls. You've got, roads, cities, all of these things all around the place. And that was done off the back of a trade zone and a fish processing centre. But, I went over there and did some analysis for the government, more than 10 years or so, probably nearly 14 or something years now. And it was really good to see that they did it in stages, and that it was interesting that the total spend that they'd had over the 20 years the zone had been there was going to be less than what we were borrowing to spend on the first phase, and we still lacked a lot of the essential ingredients. So I take it with a grain of salt. I think export zones are important for a big export commodity, and that's why, because in an export zone you're exempt from all of the domestic taxes. Yes. Whilst you're doing that, so you can get it out there to the market. It's sort of a duty-free trading zone, and that comes back on this importance on a holistic platform. And that's what I'm in the paper about today. I'm not disparaging the government, but I'm essentially begging them on behalf of the several thousand companies that whose collective voices I get to articulate. We have to stop having these one-one deals. You mentioned it yourself. People come in. Is it a question of incentives? Well, the only people that are coming to play are saying you've got to give us some really significant exemptions here. At some stage, we've got to have a look and say, how is an environment where we're paying, 30, 35% taxes on all profits, compared to everywhere else around us for people to go and do business. When, say, 20 or 30% of your overheads are, well above and beyond what you'd pay anywhere else. Even things like security, that's a long-term thing. But the reality is, businesses in PNG spend, double digits, it might only be 10 or 11 or 12 or as much as 15% of their costs on security. whereas to run that business anywhere around us, it would be less than 1%.
Yep.
So all of these things add up. And I think at some stage we've got to say, well, what can we do now? So we can look at, things like company profits tax, payroll taxes, all of these things that are incentivizing non-compliance, which is a whole topic of conversation in itself.
Yes.
So we've got to get that right. We need to bring in the capital. People need to see that they're going to get a reasonable return. We know that, I like have this saying, that capital is cowardice. Capital likes to go where it feels safe.
Yes.
And, when we take our capital to places where we feel less safe, what do we want? A much higher rate of return. And then on the same, on the other page, the reverse side of that same page, we've got this expectation and, all of this, this talking about how we want PNG to be this, wonderful, low cost, comparable place to everywhere else. Well, you don't get to have those things when, everybody that's doing business is chasing a rate of return that's quadruple what they're getting in the places you're trying to reflect.
What other commodities have particular potential in your view?
I think the first steps we've taken now are where we need to continue. So frozen vegetables, ready-to-eat vegetables. We see now countries like Samoa, when you walk into supermarkets throughout Australia and New Zealand, you can see, washed and ready-to-eat sweet potato or cow, taro and all of those sorts of things. So I think, and that's the same here even for our domestic market, not necessarily just for export. I think also there's huge potential once we get the roads fixed and we get the port services, those supply chain issues down, around some of the facilities that will be required to make them suitable for export. Meaning, all of that trade-related infrastructure that will help the food exports in particular meet the phytosanitary requirements for the import destinations.
Yes.
Heat treatment facilities, for instance, or, they use radiation treatment and the like now. So that will be another little bit that could be done. And again, see, these are holistic things. You don't just do it for one. If you have that facility set up at the logical point for the, that where it gets sealed ready for export, the certification point, 10, 20, 100 different, users can use that facility in the same way they do it everywhere else. And again, this is my issue with some of the zones. If you go and put it in one small destination, you put the infrastructure there, well, what about everybody else? And if you go and put that facility up, say, somewhere in the Highlands, but the container's being exported here, all of those staff, all of the people that are required to do the certification before a container is sealed and it can't be touched again, will need to be up there, and you've got to then have, additional traceability through that whole journey. Any interruptions and you go back to zero. So it's going to be important where we put it. That will promote those areas. On the other side, it's really about land access and security. Now, that's, I guess, one of the attractive parts about these export zones is they've generally, identified a parcel of land. They've put it into, plots, if you will. But what they need is water. They need power. You need your communications, and they need to be available 24/7. They need to be reliable 24/7, because that's another major increase in the cost of doing business here is the everything you have to do to provide your own N-1 or your redundancy for your energy or to keep it clean. So again, they're best treated holistically. In Port Moresby, PNG Power's, trying to undertake a whole, Port Moresby grid rehabilitation on the Ramu grid, which is, covers, many, many provinces. But that's about getting, clean, reliable power through there. And then I guess there's other work being done on the affordability piece. With the review underway, some of these PPPs. So IPP, sorry. So that's the bit there. Once we get those bits, then you can get some of that more heavy industry, be it that we're making cement or we're making bricks or we're, ramping up our steel fabrication industries and the like.
I guess another agricultural commodity that PNG is obviously exporting a lot of is coffee. Do you see any value-adding opportunities in those areas beyond what's already happening?
The capacity for coffee will be high. You say we do a lot. in the scheme of things, we're a minor player. I think if PNG could regularly and reliably produce 4 or 5 million, bags of coffee.
It'd be less than a million now, wouldn't it?
It is. We've only cracked 1 million. I mean, people like Paul Barker would tell you exactly how many times in the years it was. But I think it's literally, there was all of this when I was a young boy. There was a talk about PNG had its quota increased to 1 million bags. But it took us, like a generation to get to that amount. And I think we've only gone over it, once or twice. But if we quadrupled or even more our output, the world would suck it up. So I think that's a really important bit. It's been pleasing, though, to see the focus on the more higher value people doing their roasting and blending here. Again, and my views about this are well known. I think given the issues that are prevalent in Papua New Guinea around accessing tenable land, this vision of becoming a big global player, I think, is going to be a difficult one to achieve, because if you have take again out of General Santos, Dole or Dole, DOLE, big, world-renowned, pineapple and canned fruit manufacturer. We went to the pineapple farm and we were literally in a car driving, 80, 90 kilometres an hour, but you're driving for like an hour or two and it's the same pineapple farm. You see your whole eye line everywhere we were up to this volcano is just pineapples. It's like tens of thousands of hectares of a pineapple farm. And they have several, because there's so many pineapples being grown by that one producer, they actually have a couple of factories, to process it all. I really can't see that happening certainly in our short term, not even in our medium term.
No.
And almost hopefully not in our long term, because one of the things that makes PNG unique and beautiful is that it's one of the few places in the world where our people actually own the land. I think we've got to learn how to make better use of it. But, I don't know that that's necessarily the right way to go for such a beautiful place. So if that's not the future, that huge, broad scale, literally GPS technology mapped out to get your highest, capacity or production value out of the land, it's got to be in this lower volume, high value. And that's what we are seeing now with a number of brands looking at roasting and getting export markets. And that can be the same in some of the other commodities as well.
So really, in the given that PNG is not likely to achieve the scale or the low cost economy that would make a lot of manufacturing practical, what you're saying really is we really need to be focusing on those areas where there is that higher value, so you can kind of absorb the costs into the price you're selling at.
Oh, 100%. And this has been my argument with rice. I'm never going to have an argument with anybody saying that we don't love rice, and all of our neighbours like to eat rice. I think it's quite easy to win an argument to say that we shouldn't be eating white rice, and certainly much, 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 much smaller portions of it. But only the poorest countries in the world are major rice producers and exporters. Again, I don't hear about people trying to emulate the living standards of the people that work in the rice producing industries in Indonesia or Thailand. That's not what we want. We want to be comparable to Australia or Singapore, New Zealand, some of these Northern European countries. So if we're going to get, 8 or 9 cents per square metre of value out of, trying to have rice paddies, but we could go in and put papaya or rambutans and get, $100 per square metre. That's where the focus has got to be. And it might, we can't turn the whole country into a rambutan farm. But, we got all these other tropical fruits, the broccoli, the cabbages, they're amazing. And then I guess we're largely organic. So again, we maintain that status. We can get to the premium markets for the premium price. And that's where we need to be, because you take bananas. We hear about people trying to export bananas to Australia. People in Australia and New Zealand are complaining when they have to pay more than $3 a kilo for bananas. I pay more than that when I go to the local informal market here, not including the cost if I was going to transport them and have them processed for retail sale. So Who wants to eat a banana in Australia that costs them $14 or $15 a kilo or $20 a kilo? Nobody. So we've got to be realistic about, what's the value, what's the market expectation, the consumer, the willingness of the consumer to pay and what they're expecting. And then I think it's about, making the right decisions and the smart decisions to tailor to those markets.
And our sincere thanks to Chey Scovell for his time this morning. Very interesting viewpoints. If you have any alternative viewpoints, if you want to share any of your comments, please feel free to use the Q&A tab at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Now, our next topic for discussion is a very pressing matter, and that is vaccination against COVID-19, which is obviously rolling out in Papua New Guinea as we speak. Now, PNG is receiving thousands, tens of thousands of vaccine doses from overseas donors at the moment to help fight the outbreak of COVID-19 in the country. And we're told by medical experts that vaccination is one of the roads out of the current global crisis that we're facing all around the world. But we also know that a lot of people just do not want to be vaccinated. So what can employers do particularly about it? Because they're often very, very heavily involved in vaccine and other health issues in Papua New Guinea. Well, to join me to discuss this is Dr. Anne Clarke. Dr. Anne Clarke is the program manager at Businesses for Health PNG, which is a not-for-profit organisation, which, as many of you know, has been heavily involved in tackling tuberculosis in Papua New Guinea for many, many years. Welcome, Anne.
Oh, good morning, and thank you very much, Andrew. It's lovely to not see anybody at all, but I know you're there.
So this is a big issue right now because we have a pressing matter of the fact that PNG has vaccines that it needs to use within a certain time frame, or they're actually going to expire. So I guess let's talk first of all about how serious the issue of vaccine hesitancy is in PNG.
Thanks very much, Andrew. I'm really here to not use that word for a whole range of reasons. And the question I think that everyone needs to ask themselves is, why don't my staff want to get vaccinated as quickly as I do? And that takes us on a journey to understand what makes people think that the way they do in relation to protecting their behaviour and promoting their behaviour. And in Papua New Guinea, we've got a context of health protection, not health promotion. So that's your first point of difference. And with all due respect to the Minister, in the paper yesterday, his explanation for vaccine, the H word, which we don't give any oxygen to, is to blame people. Blaming people for misinformation around the vaccine, for ignorance and selfishness. This is not how anybody changes behaviour. And the Businesses for Health has huge history in behaviour change in workplaces in Papua New Guinea. And I think the word history tells you everything. You can't expect change of something radically new to be embraced overnight. And I think the best example I can offer is enormous international press was given to low uptake by the vaccine by the healthcare workers, the nurses at Port Moresby General Hospital. And I'd like the audience to think about, why would that be? And it's very easy to say, oh, well, they're ignorant and they're selfish and they've been loaded with stuff from Facebook. Well, take another thought. Well, how many people at Port Moresby General Hospital were asked about their vaccination status last year and the year before that? Why was it that they're told that they work in Papua New Guinea's premier hospital and it's the main referral hospital that's full of specialists? Why would you go to a football stadium to get a vaccination when we vaccinate children here in this hospital? So you've got two really radical, what? Why is it that a private provider from somewhere else is giving me my vaccination when we've got perfectly good staff here? Why do I have to get on a bus to go there? Why are there all of these questions? These are nurses who understand that the vaccination rate for all childhood diseases is currently less than 50% across Papua New Guinea. What's the rush with this one? Why is there a fence around it, and why can I not take a selfie? Like, these are basic principles around creating misinformation or creating doubt or creating suspicion when things are done in such a hurry. So the question I'd like to ask the minister, and that businesses need to be assured of, is it's not about hesitancy. The question is there a vaccine for me? Is it being distributed to where I am? To have no confusion, what is the opening time for the clinic? And we've tried really hard to put clear information about, like on our website, that Rita Flynn is the perspective. The vaccination centre in the NCD. The provincial level government health authority is taking responsibility for rollout in provinces. If you don't know who your provincial level health administrator is, this is your best opportunity to find out, because vaccinations are being handled by the provincial health authority. If you know nothing about provincial health services, that tells me that you don't have a history of engaging with public health in your local area. That's not to blame. So why can't I book online? Why can I book an aerobics class down the street, but I can't book a health? I'm being told that this is a life-saving passport to international travel and opening my business, but I can't book online. What investments are necessary by the private sector to enable that? And all of that.
So just to talk about, sorry, just to clarify. So if you're an employer in PNG and you want to be seen to be doing the right thing, what do you do?
Well, first of all, you called me and asked me to come and do some vaccination information sessions, because that's a part of the program. Right. But if you've never promoted discussion and established HIV workplace policies 20 years ago, and you've never enabled difficult conversations about sexual and reproductive health, and you've not addressed the number of people who died in your local community of tuberculosis last year, and you were not aware that Papua New Guinea was one of the worst affected TB countries on the planet, and my head is ringing from all of the things that Chey has said. We are addressing, in Papua New Guinea, workplaces are addressing cost of doing businesses that just don't relate to economic and supply chains, but the health and well-being of your surrounding communities. So where we've gone in, and there's a trip to just call me and do an information session because that's going to fix your problem quick time. It's not. Where we're seeing fantastic response to and the team are online, so hi there in Port Moresby, where we're having really good feedback and information and people putting their hand up to say, yes, can I go and get vaccinated? Other workplaces where we've been working and providing discussions and talking and having policies and leadership around health issues. Back at the G4S office, we've got people talking about case finding for tuberculosis. Those same people are inviting us to come and talk about vaccination. We already have a pathway in because the discussion and the value of protecting your health and promoting health and well-being of your family and community is already a part of the conversation. And
so, Anne, just on that, say if we have talk about the conversation, there are a lot of people in PNG right now saying, I don't want this vaccine, I'm not taking it, I don't trust it, end of story. So in the face, if someone has staff like that, or what comes across those attitudes in the workplace, what can an employer do? Or can't they do anything?
My personal philosophy on health behaviour change isn't many very complex theory. It is based on you never try to get the fat man off the couch. When businesses, and I'll take, for example, Ashurst Lawyers, G4S, the Kenmore Group, all people who have been involved in health behaviour change programs for many, many years and who support us. So it wasn't just a plug, they really do it. They have workplace policies. They have workplace programs in place. There will always be leaders who do have the information, who do want to get vaccinated, who have been to get vaccinated, who can come back and talk about their personal experiences. And what the girls, what the fantastic team of women and one young man say in Port Moresby is there's lots of information, and having the opportunity to understand the context of what is an outbreak, what is the process of being vaccinated, because, as I say, less than half of all Papua New Guineans have been comprehensively vaccinated. So this is a new thing. You're going to inject me with something? Show me how. Does it hurt? These are the basic sorts of things that can only be covered if you've got permission to talk. Then you go back to the first few things I talked about. Can I get away from work? What's the policy? When are we going to do this? In the same way as talking about tuberculosis, will I be sacked if I tell the boss I've got TB? Do people feel confident approaching HR? What are the policies around? We're going to have a program of promoting vaccines, and then we're going to book some times, and then the first people who want to go can go, and you can't expect 100% take up on the first day. And we have a case in point. Very few nurses at PNG took the opportunity on the first day because they were caring. They didn't know how long it was going to take. They were really, really busy dealing with very, very sick children who will die without their attention. And a basic understanding for them is that, well, I've had the flu. I've heard that this will be, most likely I will recover within 14 days. Here's someone with TB. If I don't give them their treatment, they'll die. So the weighing up of relative risks for a health worker at PNG is quite different for the people. And I'd like to say that Monia has been involved in HIV and the discussions of TB, and we've trained people in their workplaces, and I expect them to be putting their hands up quickly to want to go and get vaccinated. So
there's no substitute for actually taking some time over this?
None whatsoever.
Yeah.
Sorry. And look, Australia's outperforming Tajikistan and Azerbaijan and Morocco in its vaccine rollout. So I'm not speaking from a country of mindful awesomeness in vaccine rollouts. But then I think it's also this issue of uptake relative risk is the countries who have done exceedingly well in vaccine rollouts are the ones who've got exceedingly extraordinary numbers of infections and high rates of death. So perception of risk is something that people need to consider. So what's people's perception of benefit? And I said to someone the other day, well, no Papua New Guinean is going to be able to take an Australia Awards scholarship unless they've been vaccinated. These are massive opportunities that people will miss out on when I don't know how long Mr. Joyce's vaccination only on my plane, please, is going to last internationally. But this issue of vaccine passports is not one that I favour because it raises massive impositions of wealth and opportunity and inequity, and all of those issues are raised by the process of a vaccine passport. But let me tell you, there are going to be institutions who say no hat, no play, no vaccination, no come. No university, there are many, many reasons to get vaccinated. But I think that's really at the far end of the extreme. What we most need is know that the vaccine is there, know that you can go at Monday at 9 o'clock, know that it's open, know that it's going to take 2 hours of your time. We can all work from home. We all can be safe at work. We can be monitored. We can be transported. But we need to have surety of supply. We need to be clear and unconfused about being able to get it. And my other favourite example is when I very first arrived in PNG, someone said, you cannot talk about condoms. People don't like them. People have all, the church is against them and all of this kind of stuff. All excuses. The fact is, there weren't any available. So people don't want what they think that they can't have. If I know that I can go down to Rita Flynn today in Port Moresby and I will be served by a well-trained expert with a vaccine that has been kept in the fridge, I will go.
So keeping it simple, making sure everything's lined up properly. I'm just wondering if we have any questions or comments from anybody. If you do, you're very welcome to use the Q&A function at the bottom while Anne's on stream now. I'm just checking to see whether there are any.
I'm looking at the question here. Thank you, Marianne. Unless we have an employer has a workplace program policy in place, companies will struggle with the rollout of any kind of uptake. Absolutely. When we started asking people to distribute condoms, we had enormous resistance. I don't have time to talk to people or to argue with the fat man on the couch, or as Chey referred to as stopping people eating rice. These are not winning battles. We have at least 50% of every single workplace ready and willing to get on that bus or to get in that car and to stand in a queue for a reasonable amount of time to get vaccinated. But that comes on the back of well-informed workplaces with a well-informed understanding of the consequences, and that if you do want to take time, in small businesses, can I take time off work to go and get vaccinated? Can I read the other question quickly?
Sure.
Oh, it's about holistic approach and ISO standards, which of course, and it's not for me, it's for Chey. But the reality is that health programs in the workplace are part of holistic development. Yes. And demanding that the government pays for online electronic data entry and booking schemes for COVID vaccines is, did you know that the government is also trying to struggle to pay for $300 million worth of tuberculosis drugs? Yes. Yeah. This is not something that you cannot deal with things in isolation. The difference between the COVID-19 vaccination and all other vaccinations like polio and measles, which we live on there by the grace of God, go all of us in Papua New Guinea that we don't have another outbreak of those diseases, this has come at us as literally a bolt from the blue. It's new and it's frightening for everybody. Our lives have been put in complete turmoil. We are trying to promote workplaces to continue to participate in an infectious disease that is killing more Papua New Guineans than anything else in terms of infectious diseases, at the same time as dreadful infant mortality, poor childhood vaccinations, and the list goes on. To go back to our devoted nurses at Port Moresby General Hospital who think that God is going to look after them, well, you know what? That's a hard argument to play with. If you're not offering 10 o'clock, you will be vaccinated, you'll be fine, and you'll be back at work by 11.
So getting organised is the key, Anne. We're going to have to leave it there, but please stay online. And if people do have further comments or questions they want to give to Anne and her team, they are sitting online during today's session, and we'll try and get to any questions or comments you have for the rest of this session. But for now, thank you very much, Dr. Anne Clarke.
Thank you very much. We look forward to hearing.
Take care. Okay, that comes to the next point of our programme this morning, and that's our regular segment called The Inside View, during which we talk to one PNG-focused senior executive about one particular business topic. And the topic today is borrowing from the bank. I'm delighted that we've got Asi Nauna, who is the Executive General Manager at Kina Bank, to talk to us about what sort of things business needs to know about borrowing, but also what the lending environment is like in PNG right now. A little note of caution, my apologies for the way I look and sound in this particular part of the video. Hopefully the quality of the conversation will make you forget about it quite quickly. Kina is a big lender to business and to consumers in Papua New Guinea. I think your loan book is something like 1.6 billion Kina you have in lending at the moment. So it'd be interesting to get a sense of the lending environment from you at the moment. How is demand for lending right now, and what sorts of lending requests are you receiving?
So the world is experiencing the most challenging conditions we've ever seen, at least in our lifetime. And that pretty much has changed the landscape of everything, socio-economic, and lending included. As we all know, PNG wasn't shielded from the COVID-19 pandemic. We saw the government impose restrictions across the country for a period, among other things. This resulted in, the closure of schools and businesses that were not classified as critical. There were restrictions to public transportation, logistics, accommodation, and the list goes on. And so the impact of this on the lending landscape from a Kina Bank perspective, I think, was twofold. Firstly, we were seeing the lending environment shift from funding growth to providing relief for existing customers, both in retail and business. And what this meant was that the bank supported its existing customers impacted by the pandemic through loan repayment relief arrangements. We also reduced interest rates by 2% for working capital facilities or overdrafts to help support customers as well, particularly in the business space. And from a home lending or mortgages perspective, we repriced interest rates for home loans and investment property loans, to 6.95% and 7.95% respectively. So the bank took a duty of care approach to support its customers that were adversely impacted from the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing we saw was that customers who weren't impacted by the pandemic pick up opportunities to redirect cash flow used to service a lease, for example, to build or purchase property to own and or to occupy. These customers obviously would have gone through the normal bank's normal credit assessment process, and that translated to the lending book growth that we saw in 2020. This is actually projected to grow further this year. And then in terms of trends, so our view is, we've seen little change to the net demand for lending in the last 12, 18 months at least. Having said that, we've had a flattening of requests for investment property loans off the back of, rental vacancies, for example. On the flip side, we saw a demand for increase in owner occupation or owner-occupied home loans through new purchases and refinance of home loans from other banks, where we allowed debt consolidation to occur as well. So it was a bit of a mixed bag.
Mm-hmm.
And this feature was also seen across the business segment as well.
So what kind of things and what size of loans are businesses coming to you looking to finance?
So they're not as, that's a good question. So they're not as sizable across the various segments that we do look after. We do have seen a number of customers come to us, particularly the larger players who weren't impacted by the pandemic, such as the hardware wholesalers, retail traders, who did apply cash flow towards rental from third-party facilities to diverting that cash through to a asset that they would occupy. So yeah, we were looking at loan sizes between a few hundreds of thousands to even in the millions. And then in the property space, the ticket size is generally at about 300 to between 300 and 500,000 for a deal.
So what sort of advice would you be giving to businesses right now if they are seeking to borrow money, especially if they're a small or medium-sized business?
There are a couple of things I'd encourage SMEs to do. And the first thing would be to revisit their business model, assess their current financial position, identify, current and emerging risks that they face, and work out what they need to do to continue largely to exist and to sustainably grow at some point. I think this needs to be reviewed quite frequently under the current situation that everyone's pretty much experiencing. And this could mean developing, other revenue streams, resizing their business, redirecting resources, to name a few. I'd also recommend that they engage, or these SMEs in particular, engage professional service providers, such as accountants or ICT specialists who can help with these reviews, because it does go a long way when customers do approach the bank to provide assistance. And then what I'd also suggest is for, if there is a funding requirement, the SMEs need to establish whether they can afford to service debt and continue to operate, obviously. And finally, what I'd encourage SMEs to do is to engage their banker to discuss options that they may want to consider, and also obtain clarity or full visibility of costs associated with borrowing, because I believe this is one of the real pain points for customers who do approach banks for assistance.
What is Kina's value proposition when you compare yourself to your competitor? How are you trying to grow that share of the pie?
So our approach is to growing our market share in lending is really to make our relationships stickier. And so outside of our lending offering and the customer experience, which is critical for us, I must admit we have some way to go in that respect. We also offer other banking solutions to customers in the retail or the personal space. For example, we provide new account opening through our website. So there is an online application process that customers can use to set up accounts for themselves, and then the traditional means through the branch network. We recently launched our fee-free transactional account last month called Kina Everyday, which has no FBOS fees, no monthly maintenance fees, and has a minimum opening balance of 10 Kina. From a relationship perspective, we have an offering called Prime to all our home loan customers. These customers will have a dedicated relationship advisor. It's not something that we provided previously, so this came into the market just recently. Where these relationship advisors help personal customers with their own banking needs without having to actually visit a branch and queue up. And so what we're trying to do is eliminate all that waiting time and the customer experience and look at elevating that as well.
I guess one of the other things that businesses these days are looking to do more is to get online with their business. So you might provide a loan to them, but then I imagine also there's a lot of interest now in e-commerce and things like that.
We have the internet banking, internet payment gateway, which facilitates online payment options for service providers to accept, schemes, cards. And more recently, we launched transacting on non-scheme cards through this portal as well. Our online banking platform was recently upgraded with a new look and feel, but it was in a much more user-friendly and intuitive environment with new features that were recently upgraded to include, salary payments, payment scheduling, and local and international payments as well.
And I think also there might be a business Visa card coming from Kina soon. Is that right?
We're looking at a at developing an SME solution that is tailored specifically to the banking needs of small businesses, and that one of those offerings is the SME Business Visa card. So what this will also do is provide businesses with access to making payments online as well. So that's something to look out for.
So our sincere thanks to Asi Nauna from Kina Bank for her time for that very helpful interview, and also to Chey Scovell from the Manufacturers Council and Dr. Anne Clarke from Businesses for Health PNG. Well, that's it for our programme this morning. I hope you found it stimulating and informative. We will be running monthly sessions all the way up to and after our PNG Investment Conference, which will be taking place, as I announced at the beginning of this programme, between the 7th and the 9th of September. Just finally, to thank our sponsor for this morning's event, Monier. Our sincere thanks to them for their support. Stay tuned for more briefings in the coming months. To keep in touch with PNG's economy and what's going on in business, then please go to businessadvantagepng.com, which is the website where you'll find everything you need to know, from guides to doing business to the country, to the latest news and updates, and also the PNG 1000 business directory as well. We're on all the socials, as you saw there, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter as well. So that's it. Until next time, please stay COVID safe, and may your business have the advantage. Very good morning to you.